Good evening. Welcome to Politic It podcast. Tonight we have Randy Watt, and it's good to have you back, Randy. You were on when we were kind of getting started. Now it's kind of neat to have you come in again.
Yeah, it's a real privilege to be here.
Let's talk first, just so people that don't know you can get to know you, right? And kind of where you came from and what drives you, and
Sure.
kind of what you've been doing in your career.
Sure. So I spent 36 years with the Ogden Police Department, the last 4 as chief. Retired 2.5 years ago from there, and had a great career there across multiple activities within the department. Big believer in Ogden. I watched Ogden, the city of Ogden, change from literally the crime capital of the state of Utah to where it sits today. It's one of the most pleasant recreational destination sites, and I saw firsthand 25th Street, the change in 25th Street from the old days of the 70s, 80s, and early 90s into what it is today, which most people don't realize unless they've been long-term residents of Ogden. Most times don't realize what 25th Street was, or Two-Bit Avenue, as it was called. I also spent 34 years with the Utah Army National Guard. Started as a private, retired as a colonel. With the 19th Special Forces Group, over the years, multiple trips to the war, and had 2 very, very good careers going there. Along the way, I picked up a master's degree in business, a master's degree in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College, and I've just pretty much served my whole life. I grew up in the home of a World War II hero. And so a phenomenal man who believed in service, and so I think that just kind of stayed with me, and that's pretty much where I've spent my life. Back in 2008, I started a consulting and training business. It does very well, SRW Inc., and it crosses a wide spectrum of activities. Everything from strategic leadership training for corporations, everything from Fortune 500s to startups, and provides a lot of specialty services, military and law enforcement specialty services to clients in a variety of places, including different spots in the world. Along with that, because of developed expertise. Recently, last few years, I've spent quite a bit of time working on school safety and security, securing our schools against violent perpetrators and violence in the schools. I've been working very closely with Representative Wilcox and others on that subject matter. And then, because of that, because of my background, I spend a great deal of time doing specialized training, tactical and firearms training for military and police special operations units. And then I also do similar training for civilians, including teachers groups, and I'm a range master at the world's oldest and longest serving and largest private firearms training institution in the world, and that is a gun site in Paulden, Arizona, that was started in 1976 by Colonel Jeff Cooper. So you throw all these things together, I stay pretty busy.
Yeah.
But I'm doing what I want to do when I want to do it. And I spend a fair amount of time on behalf of Ogden City working on legislative issues during the legislative season down at the Capitol and working on interim bills. I sit on the School Safety Task Force as the school security expert, subject matter expert. And I'm on 4 of the working groups working on bills to support Representative Wilcox and Senator Ipsen and others as we move forward in an attempt to make schools more secure.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. In fact, I want you to come back with Representative Wilcox, and we'll do a whole show just on that idea of school safety. So the military part of it, was it mainly in the Guard, and then you were deployed many times, or were you ever active duty?
Only as an activated guardsman. My whole career was in the Utah Army National Guard. It was 33 years, 10 months to the day.
Wow.
And I started as a private, and I spent 8 years enlisted, and then an officer talked me into going to the officer candidate school. I went that way. My whole career was with the 19th Special Forces Group, so I was a qualified Special Forces soldier. and
Green Beret.
Commander, Green Beret. And when I retired, I had commanded the group. So I commanded at the A-team level, then a company level, and then a battalion level, and then commanded the group. And the group consists of about 2,500 Green Berets across 9 states.
Wow. So what were the deployments that you feel were the most significant that you?
Well, we went, my company, Special Forces Company, for Bravo Company out of 1st Battalion here in Utah, was the first Utah unit that was activated after 9/11 and sent to Afghanistan. So we were mobilized on state orders in November of 2001, and in December of 2001 we headed for Afghanistan, and we returned and came off active duty in December of 2002. I spent almost 10 months in Afghanistan, commanding Special Operations Unit. Our mission was to locate and destroy enemy forces, maintain a presence in a regional core area, and deny sanctuary to the enemy. And we did it very well. Utah should be proud of its guardsmen that it sent initially to the war and then all the deployments afterwards. Our battalion went to the Philippines. Little known part of Operation Enduring Freedom was Operation Enduring Freedom in the Philippines. We sent a battalion there in 2004-05. I went back to the war in 2006-07 as the counterterrorism advisor to the Iraqi National Counterterrorism Unit, and had an 11-person counterterrorism advisory team advising on operations on behalf of the Ministry of Interior and the organizing, leading, directing the National Command Center and the Iraqi Commando Unit against terrorist targets. And then came back, and of course in between I'm doing all these different things, commanding at different levels. And then General Tarbett, who one of the finest, as far as I'm concerned, the finest general I've ever had the privilege to work with, who was the Adjutant General of the state of Utah, selected me in 2009 to attend the U.S. Army War College, which is a prep school for generals. And so I spent a year at the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. Graduated in June of 2010, and in July of 2010 I was headed back to Iraq. Spent another year in Iraq, and I was the strategic plans chief for the counterterrorism headquarters for the whole region. And so we planned long-term planning to defeat the enemies of the United States throughout the region, and that included the pipeline of terrorists coming out of Syria through Turkey, from Turkey through Syria. It included AQI, it included a whole range of targets that we prosecuted. So I spent another year there. Came back, took command of the group, spent 2.5 years as the group commander. And then I was approved in the Senate for promotion to Brigadier General, which put me on the list, but I did not get picked up for that. So on the 30th of September 2015, I retired, 33 years, 10 months to that day, service for the Utah Army National Guard, many periods of it on active duty, and I couldn't have asked for a better career.
That's amazing. Yeah. One of the things I think of when I think of you was, during the time we were having the BLM riots in Utah, they were turning over police cars, breaking windows out of businesses, burning the cars on the street.
In Salt Lake City. We didn't allow that up here.
Well, see, that was what was interesting to me, because I remember a protest that was very peaceful here. Mm-hmm. Allowing people to protest, but there wasn't any of that funny business that goes on. Can you explain what the difference were in your opinion? Sure.
So first, as police chief for the 4 years that I was chief, I enjoyed a phenomenal relationship with our mayor, Mayor Mike Caldwell, phenomenal mayor, Mark Johnson, CAO of the city. And so we had a great working relationship, and they relied on me, my experience, my expertise, my training, my education, to decide how things would happen and be handled across a variety of venue of different things. We have a very solid county attorney, up here, and Chris Allred. And Salt Lake has a different environment politically. Salt Lake has a very liberal mayor, a very, very liberal district attorney, who sees things through different set of lenses than we see up here. The one thing that the mayor made clear to me and that we discussed is that the local businessman and the local residents would not bear the cost of these protests. Very different from what Salt Lake saw of things. You remember when the mayor said we've given them room to vent their frustration, and windows can be fixed, and graffiti can be painted over. We don't even let that begin here. So we got word that the first major protest was going to be happening here. We got with Ryan Arbon, a phenomenal county sheriff, for his support. We got with the other local police chiefs for their support. We had quite a meeting, but we made it very, very clear that we would be nice, we would be friendly, but we would have zero tolerance for any criminal acts. There was no such thing as windows can be replaced and graffiti can be painted over. That would not happen. So we took the approach of when this first major protest, and there were buses coming in from out of town bringing agitators the same way they brought them to Salt Lake City. When that first protest arrived, and as I recall the number, we had about 3,000 people in that 2-block area downtown there for a protest, including a number of agitators in the crowd. And we knew who had organized the protest, and I went up to them at the start of the protest, walked right through the crowd, right up to them with a couple of my people, and I said, look, we're here to support you in your First Amendment right to protest peacefully here. We're here to ensure that you're safe to be so. But please do not think that that means that we will accept any misbehavior, because we will not. We have riot control units stationed in various places that will be here very, very quickly. We see one can of spray paint, that person's going to jail. We see one act of vandalism or violence, that person is going to jail, and we don't care what it takes. We will support you. We believe wholeheartedly in the Constitution. We want you to air your grievances in the ways that our founding fathers said were the right ways and were permissible, but we will not allow anything like that has happened in other places to occur here. And they took us seriously. And I think because we had positioned various people, and we had fair amount. We had the block cordoned off properly, and there was no way they could interfere with traffic, and there was no way they could. We had done a great deal of planning. I had a great staff at the police department, great deputy chief, who's now the chief, Chief Young, great captains, people that, as they put these plans together, did a phenomenal job with it. And so it went very, very peacefully, which made the agitators unhappy. So when the next one was scheduled 5-7 days later, it was about half the size. We approached it the same way. And when the next one was scheduled 4 or 5 days after that, it was half the size again. And pretty soon people realized, look, we're not going to, even though all the media were present, we're not going to get what we're looking for in Ogden. We're going to have to go other places to get it. And so it worked out very, very well.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it just, knowing who was starting it, who was agitating in advance, and knowing who, I assume they took you seriously, right?
They did, and that was pretty easy for them to understand. I mean, I think we had made it clear, and the locals who were supporting the organization of these protests and bringing the outsiders in, I think they knew enough about me and my background and the years that I'd spent here and so on, and they knew enough about the Ogden Police Department. If there's been a long-term reputation is that Ogden doesn't put up with stuff. The Ogden Police Department does not put up with stuff.
Which was really a delightful change from
it was. They had
the old Ogden Mall and the situation there, right?
Absolutely. And they had their protests. They got to say the things they wanted to say. They got to rally and do the things and wave whatever flags they wanted to wave, and it was very, very peaceful, and they accomplished that objective. The outside agitators who came in from out of state, though, they couldn't accomplish their aim. and that's what we wanted to happen. And we wanted people to have their amendment rights. We believe in that wholeheartedly. I can think of no more staunch supporter of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights than me, and so it went very, very well for Ogden. And were it to happen today, it would be the exact same thing.
Chief Young would follow through on the very same.
Chief Young's doing an even better job than I did at running the police department.
It's amazing. It's a good thing, right?
It is. It is. People come here from all over the world, and if a police department doesn't stand alone. A police department is a department within a city government, and they play a role in ensuring an environment that will help the city accomplish its goals. Well, when Mayor Godfrey took over in the mid-'90s and he decided to rebrand this city as a recreational destination point because of all the great things we have, and that process began in Chief John Greiner, who was a phenomenal chief of police in that same time period and over across those 16 years, when they said, look, we're going to change the nature of this city, and they did, and then Mayor Caldwell took it to the next level. If you're going to have hotels built and rooms occupied, and you're going to have recreation destination sites utilized to maximize local positive impact in the economy, and you're going to make people feel good about themselves, then the role of the police department is to be friendly but firm in ensuring that people feel safe and comfortable in this city. And that in and of itself, it didn't change with me, it just got prioritized with me, and Chief Young has taken it even further.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I mean, it saddens me when I look at what's going on in San Francisco right now.
Oh, it's terrible.
Nordstrom had to close their store.
Yeah.
Just it's
their anchor store.
Yeah.
Their fleet store. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how leadership can really change the trajectory.
I've never figured out why any city, would have its business and its citizens bear the brunt of programs, whether they're social programs, whether they're support programs. Why would they do that? If you want to have an economically viable city, then you want to reduce regulation, you want to get taxes to a level that maximizes revenue income. To do that, you have to have people coming in, you have to have business development occurring, otherwise you get stagnation over time. You have to have a very vibrant program. And it seems like some of the cities, particularly the major blue cities and other locations around the country like that, struggle with this whole concept. Because you look at the number of businesses fleeing San Francisco, you look at the number of businesses fleeing California. I saw an article yesterday or the day before that by 2030, California may lose 5 House seats. Well, that tells you that what's happening with the general population. What does it take to lose, 5 House seats? It means the population is dramatically shrinking. What causes that? And you see that effect. I've often wondered why. I look at the upcoming mayoral election here in Ogden, and I think to myself, okay, so let's call Ogden what it is. Let's call the city of Ogden what it is. It's a business. It ensures the future development, welfare of and growth, economic growth and viability of local businesses and citizens, and it builds it. So let's call it a $280 million business. All right. Well, do we think of the people we're bringing in as mayor? Do we think of that like hiring a CEO to be the most successful leader of a $280 million business? If we do, I often wonder, is that, whether it's Ogden or whether it's Salt Lake or whether it's New York or Trenton, New Jersey, or whether it's San Francisco, if we looked at it in that vein, would we elect the people we're electing? I'm not sure we would.
It's a good question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's a question we need to answer, right? I mean,
yeah. What do we want out of our cities? If you're a local business and you want to flourish, wouldn't you want to take a look at who's most likely to do that? And I'm not saying anything about the current election or anything, or the candidates. What I'm saying is, if we changed our perspective, would we still, elect the people we elect? And that includes the people we send to Washington from this state.
Yeah. Yeah, those are things that we really need to think a lot about. Let's switch gears just a little bit. You talked about the work you're doing now in your private consultancy, and we have a little film of one of the things you're working on right now. So let's talk about that just a little.
So I help, one of the things my business does, because of our expertise, we help bring products to the marketplace. I have clients from Australia, corporations. I have several corporations that I've helped in the past in related industries like armor, body armor, vehicle armor, those kinds of things. Products in the emergency and trauma medical field like law enforcement and EMS, a variety of different products. And subsequently, because of the massive amount of private and military law enforcement firearms training and tactical training I do, I'm constantly working along those lines. So there's a company local here, a really genius guy, who developed a very simple and easy and very effective firearms dry practice system called Laser Strike. The company's called Laser Strike Systems, and the website is laserstrikesystems.com. Laser Strike Systems, all one word. And so he got a hold of me, and he'd heard about us in the company and so on and so forth, and he said, "This is what I'm trying to do." And so I took a look at it. I was very impressed with it. Very impressed with the simplicity of it. There are a number of laser training, dry practice companies and products out there in the world. I've had all of them at one point or another because of what I do. And this one struck me as being the ideal one that I would utilize. And so I ran through it, a whole bunch of testing and so on and so forth, and I liked it. So I agreed to help him take it to market. And that's what you're looking at, is this very, very simple. The video on it is straightforward, speaks for itself, but that's very, very much.
Well, let's watch that, and then we'll come back.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, Randy Watt here, owner of Warrior Creek Training, retired Green Beret SWAT officer and firearms trainer, and gun sight range master. I'm constantly training to maintain proficiency with my firearms, and dry fire training plays a large role in that. I use laser training devices to enhance my dry fire training, and I'd like to show you my preferred system, Laser Strike. I've had several laser target systems over the years, many of them with limitations, and the latest generation systems can be quite complex. For me, simplicity is the key, as I often train spontaneously and always at short duration. The strike targets are made up of an internal set of angled lenses designed to refract the laser when it enters, creating a bright and easily visible flash. No power is required, so there are no batteries to replace or recharge, no switch to turn on. Just set it up and shoot it with your laser. The back of the casing is magnetized, so it will stick to anything metal. There is a hanging bracket on the back, and the package also comes with a stand, so you can set it on any flat surface. That's all there is to the setup of the Laser Strike. Now set up your laser training firearm and start training. Laser Strike. Simple, economical, effective.
Welcome back to Politic It. We're here with Randy Watt. Now, Randy, we just watched that film that you put together, and so let's just talk a little bit more about that product. I thought that was kind of neat that there were no batteries in it.
Yeah.
Seems like that makes it a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. And it's portable. I take mine on the road with me when I'm traveling. I take it to hotel rooms and so on. One of the reasons I really love laser training devices is when you put the laser training device in your firearm, you cannot chamber live rounds. So there's no risk to making a mistake and firing the firearm inadvertently. And so the portability of it and the level of skill that it builds, and I use it oftentimes when I have problem shooters who have a hard time being able to hit the target. They're moving the pistol while they're pressing the trigger. it really helps them to understand how to stay on target through a smooth trigger press. Very, very good product.
Yeah, and it probably significantly reduces the cost of your training session, right?
It is. It's so economical. It's crazy.
The other thing that we talked about offline was what's happening today in the political environment. I don't know why everybody isn't outraged of the situation in Georgia, where it seems the whole legal system is co-opted in interfering with the election.
Yeah, I'm really disturbed about a number of things politically on a national level, particularly the collectively, people refer to it as the weaponization of the Department of Justice. In my 40 years in law enforcement, worked very closely with a number of federal agencies. I worked very closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I investigated RICO cases. I investigated conspiracy cases. I put cases together, took them to both the county attorney's office when they were state-level crimes, and took cases to the United States Attorney's Office and had them prosecuted, particularly drug cases and racketeering and racketeering influence corrupt organization, which is what RICO is, when they were crossing state lines, and particularly in the drug trade. And I spent a number of years in narcotics investigations. And to see the challenge that the Department of Justice has become in that realm and in that arena is very disturbing to me. Very disturbing to me. There are very simple and easy ways to look at evidence. The standards that are involved, probable cause, reasonable suspicion for crimes, to see the lack or the slow walking or the lack of investigation that might support a future prosecution is terribly disturbing. To see what has happened to the reputation of the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, both of which I held in high esteem for years, but which I'm struggling with now, it is very disturbing. And I have a number of good friends who retired from those organizations. I currently do expert testimony for case. I have a federal case going in supporting the U.S. Attorney's Office out of New Mexico. I'll be down there in a couple of weeks on trial on a terrorism case as the expert for prosecution. So I have a very, very great deal of understanding and a great deal of support for the U.S. Attorney's Office. But what is going on at the very top levels is also very, very disturbing.
Yeah. I've been really concerned about that. I mean, you looked at the whole investigation to begin with, which I felt the last time when they had this Steele dossier and stuff, and they were kind of going after Trump on that. I was thinking, well, if that's real, maybe we should be doing that. But come to find out, it probably was the opposite thing going on, right?
Well, and here is the biggest challenge to me, whether it's the veracity of the election, whether it's the charges against Donald Trump, whether it's the lack of charges in the Hunter Biden situation and the rest of the Biden family members, whether it's the potential co-option by China and Russia and Ukraine of the senior administrative official here in the United States, is we don't know. It's very confusing. 50% of the population roughly believes that the election was stolen. 50% believes that it was good. Have we ever been there before in the history?
Yeah,
have we
yes.
ever doubted an election in our times past? And more importantly, we haven't done anything. We've got a national election looming in 15 months, and none of that has changed.
Right.
The people who believe that elections have been interfered with still believe elections have been interfered with because no one has presented good, solid information either way. The people who believe that it was a tested and proven election believe the same thing, but no one has proven that. So here is this opportunity for activists to drive a wedge into the middle of us again and further and deeper to divide this country. That's what I find so disturbing.
Well, I was kind of shocked when Elon Musk took over Twitter, and then he actually produced all these documents to show there was an active coordination between a private company and the U.S. government to interfere with the election.
Right. By suppressing document, speech, and information, you extrapolate that had that information been out there, that people would have made a different decision in terms of elections. So if you don't allow the information out there, it's interfering with an election. And I believe there's some fact to that. We know from certain polls that certain percentage of people, greater than the difference in the election between the two presidential candidates, say they would have changed their vote had they known the facts, at that time. So how could that not be? But more importantly, why are we allowing this to happen, number one? And two, why are we allowing it to continue? Why aren't all the political powers, why aren't both houses of Congress, why isn't the Department of Justice working hand in hand? Why isn't the presidential administration working hand in hand to ensure the veracity of our elections? The most powerful country in the world and the most powerful institution for free elections in a democratic society, and we're not even sure anymore if we can hold a valid election.
Right. Yeah, it's like a banana republic in
some
ways, isn't it? And the other thing that bothers me a lot, you see politics entering into the decision making, and before the military generals and the army was there to focus on a mission that was determined by political decisions at Congress. Mm-hmm. And we're moving away from that.
Yeah. So I spent, as you know, 34 years in the Army National Guard, professional officer. Started as a private, spent 7, almost 8 years enlisted, then became an officer, started as a second lieutenant, went all the way up to colonel, commanding and so on, interacting, going through the military education system and process. I attribute a great deal of my life success, my professional success, to the leadership training and system and program of the United States Army. And one of the key points of that was, through my generation of Army leaders, was that Army leaders were apolitical. And they were to be that way for a reason, because we are responsive to the civilian oversight. We're essentially the only country in the world that has complete civilian oversight control of its Department of Defense, and that's the way it should be. That's the way it was designed, for good reason. So it didn't matter which party or which person was in the executive office at the time, we would serve them. In particularly the last 10 years of my time in the Army and up to today, so you're talking 15 years, we have seen an extreme shift away from that. We have seen Army officers, both retired and active duty, become very, very much political animals, and encouraged to become political animals, depending on which side of the aisle that they are on. We have seen the military and Department of Defense become more social-oriented than mission-oriented. We have seen this concept of the military, and I saw this as a police chief as well, an assistant chief, where public entities in the minds of some folks should mirror the demographic makeup of their constituencies, which is not true. Professional services are delivered by a professional force regardless of the demographics. And so we've seen all of this change over time. And the problem is this direction, combined with some of the political shifts and change that have made the world far more dangerous for America, and Americans have put far more of our national interests at risk than previously. At some point, and I'm a bit of an idealist, but I always felt that at some point, as you arrive in the political spectrum and realm, you got out of partisanship and into what was best for the nation, and you brought in your best advisors, and you brought in the best people and scholars and different things, and you had dialogue with them in order to determine what the next best step was. And now we see senior executive leadership filled with activism, filled with partisanship. We see this us against them mentality. We see this huge struggle for power and to maintain power. In all my years in the military, I spent a lot of time, both during the years of the war and previously, in foreign countries, furthering the interests of our nation by providing training to or for foreign nations that were our allies in what are called foreign internal defense missions. And we would do these things. So I spent a lot of time in third world countries. I saw banana republics. I helped countries start to figure out how to deal with insurgencies that were attempting to undermine the governments. So I understood tyranny, and I understood some of those conditions, and to see those. And I never thought that I would be thinking of some of the own activities of my own government as demonstrative of a banana republic. But today I see things that just cause me utter concern, and I wonder how do we ever allow it to reach this point in this nation?
Yeah. How did we get there?
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. We're out of time, but I'm hoping to get you and Representative Wilcox back here to talk more about the School Safety
Love to do that.
Commission. So,
Love to do that.
Randy Watt, and we'll see you guys next week.